Alright, so this is video games, self-perception, and performance by me. So, quick introduction. Ever since their creation in 1958, video games have only become more and more popular. This attention has led to many differing views of video games. And the main different view is that violent video games can cause aggression and even have similar effects to addiction, while another belief holds that video games are beneficial to developing the brain. The main difference between those two is the type of video games being played and for how long. These factors can lead to many different positive and negative mental and physical effects. For one, excessive violent video game use can often lead to antisocial behavior and a lack of exercise, while in moderation, video games can be a great way to relax and unwind from a day. Alright, so for my first article, more than just fun games, the longitudinal relationships between strategic video games, self-aware problem-solving skills, and academic grades. In this study, Polidacci and Tina Willoughby tried to examine whether strategic video game play predicted self-reported problem-solving skills among a sample of around 1,500 adolescents over 4 high school years. The results showed that more strategic video games plays predicted higher self-reported problem-solving skills, in addition to an indirect association between strategic video game play and academic grades. With this article in mind, I'm trying to see if there are similar results at Brophy, and I'd like to see if there are similar results with different types of games. If I do find anything similar, I'll be able to add on to this body of knowledge. For my second article, a formal anthropological view of motivation models of problematic analytic play. This article from Jeffrey Snodgrass relied on tools from psychological anthropology to reconceptualize each of fellow researchers Nikki's 3 motivational factors in order to test for a possible role of culture in problematic analytic play. For achievement, they examined how cultural consonants with normative understandings of success might structure problematic forms of play. He analyzed the possibility that developing overvalued virtual relationships that are cut off from offline social interactions might introduce more problematic play. And 3, in relation to immersion, he examined how dissociative and blurring of actual real-world and virtual identities might contribute to these patterns. Results confirmed that compared to Nick's original factors, these measures better predicted problematic forms of play, pointing to the role of socio-cultural factors in structuring online play. In conclusion, this study found that players can immerse themselves healthily if they take precautions and limit video game play. With this in mind, I opted to study the self-perception of Brophy students, along with taking into account the video games they played and for how long. For my third article from Vivian Kovacs, is time spent playing video games associated with mental health, cognitive, and social skills in young children. So, she found in the UK that 20% of children play video games for more than 5 hours a week. Factors associated with time spent playing video games include being a boy, being older, and belonging to a medium-sized family. And many of these factors are common within a Brophy student's family. Her study found that there was no significant association with any self-report or health problems. And high video game usage was associated with decreases in peer relationship problems and in pro-social deficits. In conclusion, playing video games may have positive effects when in moderation. Understanding the mechanisms through which video game use may stimulate children, and it should be further investigated, she states at the end of her article. And picking up where she left off, I tried to factor in a way to find a mechanism mentioned that may lead to a positive impact, such as the game genre and time spent playing. Alright, so for my method, I chose to do a quantitative analysis, and I really chose this because of the just large sample size and numerical data you can gather from it. With this, and because of this, you can make many different data patterns and draw a lot of conclusions. And in order to collect my data, I employed a survey that took into account a variety of different factors that I'll mention on the next slide. Alright, so for my survey, I asked general questions to compare the students, such as class rigor, GPA, and extracurriculars. The main questions that this survey sought from students were the different games they played, if they played with friends or alone, the time they played for, the platform they played on such as PC, Xbox, and their self-perception of their time usage, and if they're doing their best in school or not. Additionally, I also asked them some demographics such as age, ethnicity, and socioeconomics, just to further relate the different people in this study. Since this is taking into account all students at Brophy, there's no extra filter where I have to handpick my respondents, and I can take in data from all sources. That's my results. Alright, so for the first graph I have, it divided up students into class rigor, and then it compared their time usage and their game time being over 1 hour. The main significant point that I would like to point out is the contrast between those in primarily AP classes and those in regular classes. As shown by the graph, only around 20% of AP students thought they were often making good use of their time, while nearly 95% of the students in regular classes thought they were making good use of their time. The main thing that is similar between them, though, is the fact that both groups played for greater than 1 hour per day. Why is this, and what is causing the AP students to feel like they aren't making good use of their time? So additional research needs to be brought in to sort of answer these new sort of questions. I'll do that next. For my second graph, it was how are video games beneficial? I was surprised by this. Contrary to popular belief by many sort of online sources, these students thought that yes, 50% thought that yes, video games were beneficial, and right around 40% thought maybe, and then around 7% thought no. So why is this? I originally thought it may be due to a lack of general knowledge about the topic, a little bit of survey fatigue, or even just clicking yes because it might seem like the right answer. However, after doing a deeper dive, I found that it might be due to the fact that these respondents are the ones actually reporting their own data. Researching addiction helps provide some insights as to why the majority of respondents answer yes or maybe. While this is not to say that the respondents are addicted by any means, it just helps show that the reward section of our brain may be rewired to help bring in video games into our daily lives. Additionally, when people are addicted to things, they tend to seek more of it without much concern of themselves or the fact that they're going after it in the first place. While this is a sort of extreme example, it can help show why this group may think video games are beneficial. Alright, so for my third graph, I looked at time spent playing divided into 1 hour, less than an hour, 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, and 4 to 5 hours. And I compared that to their perceived post-game feeling and their feeling of effective time usage. So as shown by the graph, there's quite a large spike between 1 to 2 hours, where around 88% of respondents said that they felt best. So this sort of means that that's the sweet spot for this data. For the effective time usage, there seems to be a sort of drop-off once you get to 3 to 4 hours. And that's also sort of where it starts to lead into addiction because it's 3 to 4 hours in a given day. For my final graph, this graph shows sort of extracurriculars. And while it seemed like there's not much to learn from it, looking at the no section is actually what I want to look at. Those in the no section were shown to play video games for more than 2 to 3 hours per week. So this can sort of show why they're not in extracurriculars. Limitations. So the first main limitation of my study will largely deal with the student body of Brophy. To start, the size and number of students in the community is the first limiting factor. This is a limitation because my results will be centered primarily around 14 to 18-year-old boys at Brophy, which will not be applicable to other ages or other schools. Due to my data collection method, students will also have full range of their answers. They'll be able to choose whether or not they want to answer truthfully or accurately. This is one limitation of the study, as it would reflect negatively on any conclusions I've drawn so far. And thankfully, there weren't many troll responses, but there's always a few. The next main limitation was the game genre. So in my data collection, I asked participants what games they played in total rather than one specific game, so I could see better the true results of the Brophy community rather than biased data towards one game. Then additionally, in parts of my survey, there were some questions that were just a little bit too broad, which could not be brought in as a result. Okay, so for implications, self-perception. The data showed that students are a role of video games in their lives and that video games can be an addictive factor, but many students have shown that they are staying active in school and their GPAs are staying up. As I just mentioned, GPA reflection, that was one of the broad questions, so it wasn't enough to bring it in, but it was still high enough to connect that their GPAs were staying up. Benefit, so the data gathered can change beliefs about video games so far in the Brophy community, and it just sort of gives insight into how the Brophy community works and how the students reflect on their video games and extracurriculars. Finally, future research. There are many questions that need to be answered that came up in my research, and I'll most likely go on to further analyze these questions.